Hi, Jim.
Hi, Michael.
Great to be here.
Yeah.
In Arizona.
Welcome to Arizona.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a great place. A little hot for my taste.
It is warm, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Like every day over 40 degrees Celsius or over 110, something like that. You know, it's incredible heat here. But it's very nice. And yeah, so let us know, how did you get involved with the Billy Meier case?
Well, starting in the 70s, I opened an equipment rental business. I rented out high-quality technical equipment, starting with cameras. In the early 70s, it was Alpa, Leica, Linhof, Hasselblad cameras, and the spectrometers and light meters that went with it. By later in the 70s, I was also renting out sound equipment, speakers, lighting, generators, microphones, microscopes, a full range of equipment for science and entertainment because we knew how to maintain it and how to calibrate it. So in the process of doing that, I met a group of people working on a film with all that equipment.
Yeah.
Sometimes we would donate it, rent it out for free, do special projects. So I met people. John Stefanelli, who was working on the Shroud of Turin project, film, making a movie about it. And we were invited to participate in converting the Iridium pictures into motion picture format so they could edit it in and tell the story of what did it mean to use an Iridium camera to scan through the Shroud of Turin and what information did it tell. And John Stefanelli knew APRO and Wendell Stevens.
What's APRO?
APRO is the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization, founded by Jim and Coral Lorenzen, who worked at Kitt Peak National Astronomy Laboratory Telescope Center in Arizona.
Yeah.
And they founded the first large number of professional scientists, PhDs, let's say, studying the UFO phenomena worldwide, based in Tucson, Arizona.
You rented out really nice stuff. I mean, Hasselblad and Linhof.
We did.
That's good stuff, you know.
We rented out
and then
nice
also
stuff.
the other technical equipment. So you were always on this technical side already.
We rented out oscilloscopes and waveform monitors and things that people needed that were precise, calibrated. And we met these people through the Shroud of Turin project that were connected to RAN. Chief scientist Wendell Stevens, Jim and Coral Lorenzen, who ran it, met them. They wanted me to work on, propose, you can do the Shroud of Turin visualization and help analysis. What about UFO pictures? I said, well, probably do something. Give me a year to study it. We wintered in Arizona, so I'll be back next year. We'll study it, see what it takes, the hardware and software, and what are the processes in order to tell things. What do you want to know about the picture? Is it fake? Is it real? How big is it? How far away? So I did that.
Yeah, so you investigated the Shroud of Turin after they brought the data.
We did our one part
on
the Shroud of Turin project. We handled the conversion of the data to a visual representation of what did the data mean. We didn't analyze it. We didn't work on the analysis of the Shroud of Turin. We turned data into a visual format, overlaid. It was edited and overlaid on the Shroud of Turin, so they were able to demonstrate what did it mean. What is the purpose of this Iridium test?
What kind of data did they bring that you visualized?
Numbers. They brought density readings.
Density readings?
Yeah, density readings like a microdensitometer does with film.
Yes.
Iridium with camera scanner was measuring similar to a carbon dating, similar to that.
Yeah.
The Iridium measurement system was new to me at the time.
Yeah.
We had some experience in converting numbers, data, metrics, as it's called, hence photometric data, measurements of all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Brightness, color, density of the film grain, just in film. So they felt that we were probably close to the field of analysis of unknown UFO pictures, unknown image on a cloth, unknown objects in film.
Yeah.
And you know what? They were right. We did know how to study that and come up with a process the following year and say, okay, we'll test, we'll demonstrate, we'll test, we'll analyze. We'll take a set of your pictures around to people, have them test them. So we went.
So you tested UFO. That were the first UFO photos you tested for them.
Correct.
Yeah.
These 40 pictures, called the 40. Yeah. It was a set of slides, sometimes a set of print pictures, but we tested the slides. And whenever we would have the opportunity to get closer to the film that was in the camera, that's the key thing. Negative was in the camera. Can we analyze that? Instead of a print off of the negative or a print of a copy of the print. And all of those are useful too. It's not like you must have the original. You could test things like a copy of a fingerprint of a copy of that. Just useful. There's some information there. But if that's all that you have, that's what you deal with. So we learned a lot and worked with those original photographs and developed a method that Wendell Stevens, who was the chief investigator for APRO, used. His military term that they used was new to me: go, no go. We do this, no go, it's a fake. Go, it's true. Or go to the next step. Or we've reached something that says, no go. Don't go any further. Mm-hmm. So
what were these 40?
They were from the collection of UFO cases that APRO had been studying over the years. And some of them were next generation off of what they had gotten from the witness or the investigator. Some of them were copies of copies from China in the 1920s. Yeah. With a rickshaw and the famous picture now, a rickshaw on the street and a UFO up in the all-white sky. Could be faked. If it's able to give us data that we can say, well, this post right here, 8 inches wide and it's right there, so let's analyze the edge and the edge of this wire up there, and we compare all the edges and the contour and build a database of edges and contour that helps us know how big and far away things are. Like the eyeballs, like the brain, working together. Can look at a painting. An artist has painted a painting. What if we say, make me a painting. I want the moon right here in the painting, and I want it to be this big at arm's length. Meanwhile, I want a baseball on the other side, painted. These are painted. You tell the artist, I want a baseball that in real life is that big, and on the painting, it's that big, but the moon is that big, way out there, but I want it this big right there. And I want the eye and the brain to be able to tell, oh, that looks like the moon a long way away, and this looks like a baseball coming right at me right here. How do you do that? What's the brain doing? What's the surface like? What are the edges like? In real life, everything's in focus. Everything's in focus.
Yeah.
But it's because of the lens or the pinhole camera or the f-stop. How big is that? That contributes to focus as well as the lens. All those things working together have information in the picture that we can convert to numbers, metrics, photogrammetric data. So whether you're scanning an unknown object and scan it through, the arrival time, the strength of the light when it gets through, whatever your methodology is, to be able to get numbers at every point in the scan and have a whole set of numbers that's going to mean something. How do you represent that? As a color overlay or a chart or a pie chart or a graph or colors on a screen? Visualization. How do you turn data into a more understandable presentation? You measure things, you conduct an inquiry, and come up with something that you repeat over and over, find other people's methods. So we collected all that together and then did our own experiments. Let's shoot model car, matchbox car. Let's shoot a scale model of a car. Let's photograph, click, click, a car. Let's do a little airplane, a bigger model airplane, and a real airplane. And let's measure all the things, like coming up with fingerprints, a code for identifying loops and lines in fingerprints was the whole thing. It took a lot of people a long time to determine the indexing method for fingerprints. Well, we were collecting up the indexing that existed to, how do we know how big Mars is and how far away it is compared to Pluto? You've been figuring that out. All of those things contribute. So I talked to a lot of people in the late 70s, putting all this together because we were experts at what we were doing, renting out equipment to people we had to teach how to use the equipment. We'd take all the latest training from the manufacturers of the equipment that we were renting out, so we could teach our customers. They could keep coming back and be a better customer if they knew how to use the equipment better. So we were talking about collecting methods so that we knew what the capabilities of the equipment is, what the capabilities, the purposes of software methods are. When I say software, this is the era where it was beginning to be computerized. So we were at the precipice, on the edge. It's all been photogrammetric up to now. Now it's scanners, which are big as a refrigerator, computerized, which are big as a refrigerator. And, we got a truckload, way bigger than a refrigerator, of audio equipment and cameras and lighting and things. But the computer equipment is a big investment and a lot to learn. So we had to make the commitment, if we're going to learn all of this and we're going to do it for these people, and I'm talking to my staff, that, we'll learn all about this and then we'll get some of these kind of computers and we'll rent those out too. Wasn't, hey, let's be philanthropists again, and let's do all this work for someone for free because we don't charge for demonstrating factual truth on something that is unknown. Meaning I don't charge for testing UFO pictures. We can't be bought. We don't spin the results towards the person paying. Therefore, we don't charge. We never want to have the perception that we are following a script and we're testing these pictures for the benefit of those people. Even on the Shrouded Turin project, we were not paid.
Oh, I see.
So there was a set of principles that I had and we shared inside of the company, which we were in the business of renting out equipment and crew. But in this case, we were getting ready through this process of how do we do forensic analysis of these unknowns, what hardware, what software, and how can we apply that to something we can now rent out to others? And is that going to take us 2 years to get? Is that going to take us 2 years to get ready? Excuse me, or 5 years to get ready, or 6 months? We were entering into it. We didn't know how long it was going to take to get ready.
So you analyzed these 40 UFO photos for basically April and the people involved.
Right.
And Wendell was also involved there, who then started this investigation team of the Billy Meier case. And they brought then these photos from Billy Meier.
Correct. Wendell. We early on in the APRO project, we met Lee and Britt Elders and Tom Welch. They were friends, colleagues of Wendell's, but only Wendell was involved in the APRO project. And I liked Lee and Britt. I was like, all right, these are genuine, capable people. So when Wendell, and I guess they all had talked about, hey, let's see if this company will do this for the Billy Meier case. At the time, I had seen 2 pictures. We had experimented with testing 2 pictures while we were doing the 40. And we started with prints that we scanned, so to say, with the video camera, low res, black and white, or put a red, green, and blue filter on the camera so we could then like printing color separations back inside. But starting with low resolution, the computer helps you at least blow it up. We didn't have the software yet for doing edge and contour or brightness, etc., histogram analysis, but we could sure blow it up bigger. So we've been doing that and seeing what the pictures look like up close and bigger.
What was your first impression when you saw these 2 photos?
Well, I hadn't ever seen any UFO pictures before. I'd seen the ones from APRO, and before that, I'd seen basically none. So when I saw the Billy Meier pictures, and they always referred to them as from Billy Meier. There was never a mystery about where those pictures came from. They were so clear and so sharp and so vibrant, kind of gave me goosebumps compared to the other pictures that I had seen, black and white or color, or even ones that were really good in focus. There was just something about these pictures. It was the beam ship, variation 2, it became later known as variation 2 and variation 3. I'd seen each one of those.
For me, I can say it was like, I can't ignore this anymore. This is, the reaction. This is too good to be true.
Yeah.
The inner reaction, But, the other photos, they are usually not so much in focus, or they're not so clear, or especially the night photos, that I made this distinction at some point in my research, like the night photos, forget about it, don't even look, because that's too easy to fake. But there's nothing you can tell really, But the daylight photos you can see more, and then look for clear photos, and then it limits very much down that you have not much there.
Yes,
especially in that time, and then with them it was like different craft, different locations, all clear and daylight photos. That just didn't add up to me at all. Then it's like, there must be more to
I
this.
agree.
You know, how can one person shoot different craft in different locations, multiple, I mean, not just two, but many locations, and sometimes the same craft, but often different craft.
Yeah.
That just, and so clear, you know, that was something I had to investigate. So that was my reaction at the time.
Well, I understand. I feel your joy. It was really something. And Greg Wilson, who was my partner in the production rental company, and Larry Kimmin, who was very involved in our renting out, calibrating of our scientific equipment, oscilloscopes, cameras, microphones, waveform monitors, were really surprised about who are these people? You know, military people. Why us?
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, we're on a mission. You know, and we knew we met a lot of people in renting out the equipment over the years. I mean, we met big advertising agencies, famous rock and roll bands. So then it was, let's go test them right now. We're going to test these pictures. So they had slide film. And we went in 2 cars, Lee and Britt. I think Tom was there too, and Wendell. And I went over to my friend George Yule's place, and he made laser ablation equipment. That was lasers that were measurement devices at Yule Laser Labs in Tempe, Arizona. So we went over and he and I talked about it with them, and we talked tech talk, and they talked space talk, and made beautiful music together. Figured out that we would really set out and test these pictures properly. And what would be the methodology? We asked for this hardware and this software and this process. We're going to go to one more big instrumentation conference next. I remember that. It was like, okay, it's next month or two. Society of Photo-Optical Instrumentation Engineers, SPIE. It's the big one of the scientific measurement equipment in cameras and microscopes and imaging and optics and test measurements and astronomy, etc. So Wendell and I went to that, stayed a couple days, San Diego, and saw all the manufacturers and software people that seemed to be in the area that we are looking for, would show them the pictures and how would you all test it and who has your equipment. And we gathered up all this information to add into our process of we're going to go to this place, and this place, 3 at a time, see if they'll test it, or at minimum see what they think. Hold the pictures up and look at them and talk about what do they think is the proper method for testing these pictures and scanning them, and at what resolution, and who has the equipment. So we set a method in place, went to others. We didn't own any of this kind of equipment yet because it was $50,000, $80,000 to get one. Cameras, yeah, $1,000, $5,000, $10,000 cameras. Computers doing imaging, $100,000. That's a different kind of decision of getting something to rent out. Oscilloscope, $500,000. Different league altogether. So I was going to be really certain of what hardware, what software we were going to get. Every time you turned around, the software is $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 just for the software. So we went to a couple places, had them use their equipment a couple places, had them give us their opinion a couple places, And we were gathering our momentum. We were building our team. We were building the way that as a team we would communicate. What would Wendell and I talk about? What questions might they bring up? Who would answer them? What would Lee and Britt do when we got there to get non-disclosure agreements signed, confidentiality agreements? What were the ground rules? What were we hoping to accomplish? What could they talk about after we left? All of those things had to be worked out. It wasn't just the content. There was also the context. Content, it's in the picture. Context, how are we going to find out what's in the picture? How do people behave? What's the policy? So
in Wendell's book, there's this list of labs or whom you contacted. I think that would be good.
I kept the log of that.
Yeah.
Well, I kept the log for myself, and a lot of it was just so that I knew and could remember. I did it with all of our concerts, every city, all the receipts. I kept a log in a journal.
Yeah.
So then
also just to keep track of all the people you contacted.
Yeah.
Basically.
And so he could go back and remember me from such and such a date. And I let Wendell see my logs, have them, copy them. So this is called the transcript of the logs.
Yeah.
That in his typewriter,
yeah,
he would type over and make a list out of all the journal entries.
Yeah. So may I have it, please? So I just show quickly to the camera so that people get an idea. Oops.
Yeah, read a couple.
Yeah.
Goes on for pages and pages because it happened for years.
Right. That's a year-long process.
Years. Years.
Yes. And that's like John Stefanelli, initial contact that was May 23rd, 1978. And then it goes on May 25th, phone conversation, Stefanelli, proposed meet with Stevens elders. Then let me go there. Lots of Stefanelli in the beginning. Then Dan Fry got into contact. Jim Lawrenson, Peter Geimer. Then George Yule of that lab, George Yule lab. Then Space Data Company, Tempe, Arizona. Display graphics, edge enhancement. Yeah, that's kind of crucial for detailing. Then Xerox of PSE, questions asked, Billy Meier.
PSA, psychological stress evaluation.
Ah, that was it. Yeah. He passed that.
He didn't even know he was being tested. A PSE test is when you ask people questions.
Yeah.
And audio tape record them.
Yeah, they just recorded it.
Back and analyze it later. Yeah. They don't know that they're being measured for tremors in their voice, which indicates stress, which indicates deception.
Yeah. Well, the only stress was with the coffee, you know. He promised Calliope not to drink coffee anymore, and he did. You know?
Yeah.
And
I love coffee myself.
Yeah. Yeah, that's her little way of torturing him. Mm-hmm. Neil Davies, design technology. He's also kind of expert, wasn't he, Neil Davies?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, you're thinking of Eric Davies.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. Eric Davies from Bigelow organization.
Ah, okay. Yeah. Ray Stanford. I mean, most of them I'm not familiar with. I never got that deep into but these are lots of different people and organizations.
Government labs.
Yeah, later
contractors.
On. Yeah. Just give me a second. Here, APRO again, and then like 79. Then comes in like AI research, AIAA.
American Institute of Aerospace and Astronautics.
Okay, and then APRO again. NASA Technology Utilization Office. Marshall Vogel confirmed interest in testing metal samples. That was January 79.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Heineck got involved, or you contacted him, courtesy call. Then electronics, Optronics company. Then SPIE, that's, you told me about that.
Society of Photo-Optical Instrumentation Engineers.
Yeah, so they should know about how to, about optical forensics,
well, they are the key organization. They're the master lab.
Yeah.
And the master conference and scientific papers and the industry, representing the industry. That's where all the professors and the laboratories and everyone goes once a year to see what's all the latest stuff.
Yeah.
That needs to be taught and needs to be purchased and put in different institutions.
Yeah. Then 79, November 5th, NASA tech briefs arrive. Valuable info on Landsat Technic quests.
Right. We could see Landsat software available from NASA.
Yeah.
From tech briefs. We bought software that Landsat uses to study pictures and say, oh, that's a house that's 2,000 square feet way down there. Oh, this is a parking lot that's 200,000 square feet. This is at an angle. Oh, here's how you take a picture from here, here, and here, and here, connect them all together and make a 3D view. All that software that was available from Landsat, we got it so that we could take it with us when we went to certain places to have them test it. They had the hardware, maybe they didn't have the software. So we built an arsenal of software that we knew was the appropriate software, the best available to gather certain information.
To analyze it.
Yeah, to analyze it.
Yeah. Here, Alan Holt agreed to exchange data on propulsion.
Yes.
Yeah, that you got him to interview for this interview. That was really something. And
I got him to study Billy's notes first.
Ah, okay.
Where he talked about their propulsion systems.
Yeah.
And Lee and Brett then would get more for him, and they developed a very good relationship with him. I merely opened the doors.
Yeah.
On that one with Alan, saw him maybe twice. And they became very good friends with him. A lot of information. And I think he said something like it changed his life to read. So you see that goes on for pages. And then I list all the equipment. I list all the manufacturers, the names of the people at each company, the names of the software.
Yeah.
There were no secrets. And I knew when there were naysayers that came forward and said, oh, we tested that and it's a small model, I knew that they had not a clue. It wasn't that they were off in their perspective. That, you know what I knew? I knew they were lying.
Yeah.
I knew that people like Cal Korff didn't have any idea. He'd make up the names of software and be very firm about it, like he was the only one that knew the truth. We just deal with them as, there's something wrong with this guy. And let it alone. I never pursued I didn't make up any campaign against him. I just let him do what he was doing. You know what? I should have probably confronted him more about all of that, because he created such a terrible situation for everyone. He ruined so many things by just pretending.
Yeah.
And he didn't know anything about any of this, of any of these people. And I, for sure, was not going to let people like him know who the names of the companies were or have any of that. I don't know what he would have done.
Yeah.
But
well, some later contacted the labs.
Some of the labs were contacted by Cal Korff, who exaggerated what he said the claims made it seem like we had violated our agreement with them, and then they would retaliate, and it was very, very unprofessional and terrible. It was mean-spirited.
Yeah.
It was evil.
Yeah. He is also, that's interesting, that's November 26, 79. Marshall Vogel gives videotape deposition on metal tests, ET.
Yes.
So he confirmed that specific question,
yes.
which is in the Beam Ship the Metal.
Yes, it is.
The documentary. And I still think that's like most convincing.
Yes.
Most convincing scientist confirming this hard evidence.
I agree.
Yes. The photos, I think, of course, great work you've done and put in there, but every photo can be faked. I mean,
yes.
If you just put enough money into it.
Yeah.
But a metal sample is technology that is so far ahead.
Yes.
That they don't even know how they could possibly make it.
Yes.
That is something you cannot fake. It's like.
Now, I kept a log. Log to this day. But I think that just goes on for a couple years there, few years there.
Yeah, it goes on until April 82.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and you can see we went a lot of places.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going somewhere doing something every day or two.
Yeah.
For years.
Yeah. You were, every month you were involved and working on it. And like ABC TV reporter has classified report on 72 crash metal. So also gathering evidence from others that might verify it, or So Applegarth investigating case similar to this. Yeah. So you were the person to go to, and I contacted forensics first in Switzerland to have a look at the photos. Now,
yes,
I couldn't get anyone, and then in Europe, no one, and then on the global level, like a global forensics or World Forensics Association,
yes,
or what it's called, and nobody wants to just look at him.
Why?
You know?
Why do you think?
It's again like the bag of money might float away.
Yeah,
they have still more to lose than to gain, and I think it's not professional. Like you can at least look at it and say, I just want to know if you can find any form of manipulation in the photo. I don't want you to write this is a UFO or whatever. Yes. I don't want you to interpret the photo for me. I just want, can you find any wrongdoing or manipulation in the photo? And I think they can do that without losing their name, you know.
They could probably do that.
Yeah.
Some of the things that we ask for others to do, they may know in their mind how they think it would be put together to conduct that investigation, but they may not have the tools there. They may not be able to know even what to look for, any form of manipulation, to analyze the edges, to do the histogram and all the other things that you could do. I keep saying those ones over and over because they're the most basic. Fourier transforms, gradient and Laplacian, so will edge enhancement, convolution filters, intermodulation functions, all the basic things that are done are known in places where it really matters, where there's a question of crash or not crash, cruise missile. Is that a moon way over there, or is that something coming at me? You know, that mission critical data versus, I think it's fake. You know, there's a lot involved to be able to tell that, and they may just not know how to do it.
Well,
sometimes.
One got back to me or said, and that was in Switzerland and
Yes.
university, and I'm sure they have the equipment because it's a criminalistic institute, like where criminology, where if you want to become a forensic, that's where you have to study in Switzerland.
Right.
And so they answered first, and I said I want like I've some photos I want to have analyzed and some Super 8 footage.
Yes.
And then also triangulated each. And they wanted 24,000 francs for that. So Billy talked to Quetzal, and Quetzal said, well, better stick with the American investigators. And,
All right.
Yeah. So like confirmation of your work, and don't get involved with that. So then I thought, okay, I try something. I wrote to them, well, I would like to videotape your investigation. So that's also for your protection, that nobody can later say you did it the wrong way. So, and then I got back like, well, we think that the outcome of our report would not be to your satisfaction. So then I knew they were just trying to cop out, and get out of this somehow, And then I said, yeah, thank you. And of course, then forgot about it. It's like they wouldn't have written an honest report.
Yeah.
And basically they said, yeah, we don't want to be involved anymore. So I'm sure they could have done it.
Yes.
But and also Ptah was really upset about that's like the Metallurgy Institute in Materialprüfanstalt EPA or EMPA, Eidgenössische Materialprüfanstalt, glaube ich, EMPA in der Schweiz, that they kind of wrote, oh, this is nothing, this is from Earth, basically writing. And while Marcel Vogel says this cannot have been made here. And
when we took the samples to Marcel for testing, we put 2 of our own samples in with that as controls. Instead of, here's a box of materials supposedly from outer space. Here's a box of materials, period. What is it? What are these? Without giving him some background on them until later. So after he had done a preliminary investigation, and it was, what are these? Where did you get these from? So it was important to put some silver solder and I think it was azurite in it so that there was something to compare to. Not earth, non-earth, but just, here's these mineral samples, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And these are plain silver solder. And he said that and set them aside. And he discovered that right away. And the others were highly unusual, as he said in his extended report.
So you tried to trick him and it didn't work?
No, it's not a trick. It's a professional way to do it.
Yeah.
It's to have some normals, some standards, some things that we already knew what they were. That way we knew that.
Well, yeah, but if he would have said this is like stuff we don't have, then he wouldn't have been an expert. So you could tell by that he's an expert what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And the same, yesterday you told me that Britt and Lee and Tom and Wendell tried the same with you, or tested you. I call it test. They tested you. These photos.
I was part of their experiment.
Yes, yeah. And it's good that they did it. So it showed them that where they gave you the fake photos, or they faked, and you recognize them right away. Like within minutes, you said, no, this is a
small model.
A small model. You said like 1 foot size,
right?
And that's exactly what it is. So, and I think they were very relieved.
They were relieved, yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. So that shows that you are an expert and not someone who cannot really distinguish, and these armchair experts, that like to judge the case so easily and then without actually being able to distinguish anything.
Have you ever seen a legitimate analysis from one of the people that said it was a hoax or a fraud?
Yeah.
A report you have?
No, I think we are still waiting for that, don't we?
We're still waiting. We're waiting for that. Yeah. A couple people supplied a drawing or two.
Yeah.
But
there's no scientific report that shows here this is a fake. I mean, there are photos from Billy where I say, this looks weird. This looks like I look at it and say, this looks fake to me. But
if you do that.
But if you scientifically analyze it and you cannot find any wrongdoing, then it's not a fake. Then you must say, it looks strange, but I can't find any forgery of, manipulation.
Yeah, there's a principle called the Cumin factor.
The what?
Cumin
factor.
Quemen factor, Cumin factor, which is a first surface mirror versus a silver-backed mirror, a glass mirror. A first surface mirror reflects an image and creates a depth perception distortion that makes some things look larger or smaller, like on your car when you're driving. And the mirror over here has little things written on it that says, objects may be closer than they appear, or maybe further than they appear. There are principles in optics when things are curved, and when they're curved and first surface mirrored, that can create an illusion how big and how far away they are. And the wedding cake photographs are the ones that most commonly people go, that's a fake. That's Christmas tree balls glued on there. Well, it looks like that, doesn't it? I have to say, to me, when I look at it, without realizing what my eyeballs and brain are doing, is, that's a first surface mirror and it's curved. That's why the mirror over there looks larger or farther or smaller, whatever, is because it's curved. So it's curved and a first surface mirror. It creates severe optical illusions and depth perception. So that's what's happening with the wedding cake photograph. And we don't know how big it's supposed to be. Just because it's a little object doesn't mean that it's a model. It could be the top of the craft lifts off and goes and flies around and does its own thing. And then goes back and connects on and becomes larger. It's a possibility. Or if it's this big, maybe the ETs in it are this big. We have to know for sure what measurements that we're taking are accurately portraying what we're looking at. And curved surfaces, contour, edges can be very misleading about how big or how far away it is. If on a small object, right there, all the objects are going to be the same in focus. The depth of field on a small object is going to be that the front edge and the side edge and the top are all pretty much, if you blow it up and look at the edge, are all pretty much the same. Where a larger object is going to have, and the wire mesh is going to have more contours in it. And the front edge and the top edge could be different depending on how big the object is and how far away it is, you can have different depth of field, different focus characteristics. It's called FFI, focus field indexing, determining how far away something is, categorizing them all by going in and looking at the edges. So whatever the depth of field is, with the f-stop and with the focus, it's the same for everything. Things in the depth of field, closer one way, further different edge properties. And pinhole cameras and precise lenses have different kind of edges blown up when they go out of focus. The blur range. And fixing the blur range is sometimes called anti-aliasing. It's a way of smoothing an object into the background with the right edging. And when you're doing Photoshop and overlaying things and you want to fix it up, it's not as radical an edge like a paste up. It's called anti-aliasing. It does it also with audio. But all of the things that others tested, we tested. Eventually, we bought our own equipment, and we had some pretty good stuff. Dianza, one unit we had. I had two Evans and Sutherland ENS3s. A lot of money for each one of those. A couple $100,000 we had in the Evans and Sutherlands in the 80s. And we continued with our expertise in that to where we made an entire other business out of the optics, including working on the development of movie colorizing and being part of the key team that developed the method, the recognized method for turning black and white movies into the optical illusion of that they were shot in color.
Some of the photos of Billy, I said, Billy, this doesn't look kind of right to me.
Yeah.
It looks weird.
What does he say?
And he says it's probably coming from the force field or the field of that the craft generates.
Yeah, magnetic field bends light.
Yeah, but
cameras are picking up light. Yeah, the force field.
Yeah, the force field, but also like
doing
in,
that.
For example, in the digital cameras now, you have this that you make it look miniature by slanting the focal plane, by tilting it, and so this is done digitally now. But it looks sometimes like this effect is caused through this force field a little bit. That it's so it looks like sometimes a little bit miniature, and that it just happens by if you tilt the focal plane, and that's I have no idea how that works, but or why, but that's sometimes the impression. That's a little bit of an explanation what it could be, or what the force field could cause in the camera. The changing of
you're exactly right.
Of the focal plane, but why and how I have no idea. But anyway.
I love the Linhof with the focal plane shot.
Oh yeah, and also that you can play with it. With a large format photography, you can make one side of the face in focus and the other one not, and stuff like that. It's
art.
Yeah, that's really photography where it comes out. And you don't shoot 100 photos, you just shoot one, or two.
Some of my early photography classes in the early 70s was with a German photographer working in New York City, coming up to Hartford, Connecticut, to University of Hartford, and Siegfried Hollis was his name. And he was a noted German cinematographer and fashion photographer and art photographer. And we were all so thrilled, to have someone like him there for probably a weekend, weekend at the school. Learned a lot from him just in those few days about how to think about what the light is doing on a focal plane shutter, and for force perspective on shooting miniatures or in the face. And what do you have to do? Do you want to do it with the lens, or do you want to do it with the f-stop? And he was the guy. He be the man. Where I came to understand that in about 72 or so. It was fantastic. Changed my life.
Yeah.
Understanding about film.
Yeah, but it started already in your childhood. I mean, you were in the house of Walter Russell, who
I was, in Virginia.
Yeah, in Virginia, and he created like a new periodic table, which is makes much more sense to me than the periodic table we have.
I didn't see his periodic chart.
Yeah, but his mindset.
Until I was older.
You kind of were trained from childhood on for this job, I think, because you were like growing up in Virginia, you were in Walter Russell's place, who was like an advanced thinker and ahead of his time. For example, creating this new periodic table, which still hasn't gotten through, but which makes a lot more sense than the one we have right now.
Well, at the time, I thought he had a cool house. My parents, we lived in Stanton, Virginia. My parents taught at the noted Virginia School for the Deaf and Blind. My mother taught dance and music to the deaf and or blind, and my father was the athletic director at the school. The gymnasium bears his name. It's named called the Dilettoso Gymnasium, and he taught. He's an athletic director for the deaf and or blind. And I went to Catholic school there. And on the weekends, my brother and I were altar boys, and we would go with Father Mac up to the state-run institution for the mentally disabled, and a couple of other places, like a little field trip. And on the way back, frequently we would go to Swannanoa, Walter Russell's house. Has a giant marble statue and an altar of the Christ in his backyard. And there would be a small number of people, 10, 20, 30, for Mass there. We'd go there, and Father Mac and my brother and I dressed like little miniature priests, So, and then we'd visit at the house, and Walter and his wife Leo were always very nice, particularly to us. We were the only, when we were there for Mass, we'd be the only kids on the property at the time. And for years, we went there. People would come in from out of town. We'd go up to Swannanoa and take the tour. It wasn't until I was older, gone away, come back for an event there when I was in my 20s. Leo, Walter's wife, was still alive and lived there, and was happy to see us. And Walter had passed. And I got one of the charts. I saw it. It's like, well, look at that. I'd become interested in science, and I'd finished high school, of course, was going to once college and then transferred to another and studied something different. And that just caught me. Look, that's all the names on it. That's all the chemical elements. Wait a minute, that's a periodic chart, but it's not shaped like rows and columns. Storage boxes. It's moving, and it's a spiral, and there's all the names of everything, and all they're grouped together based on their energy relationships. Look how that works. And I was stunned by it. Wow, this is fantastic. I get it. I get it about that. So it was only then in those years that I came to realize who that guy was. That was, like Uncle Walter to us when I was smaller.
What did you study? at college and then later on?
Oh, I studied statistics and mathematics and theater. And in the early days of electronic music, University of Hart College of Music was one of the first schools to have a digital music synthesizer in 1969.
Were you also into Kraftwerk and?
I liked Kraftwerk. In fact, I just saw the new Kraftwerk video just a couple weeks ago. Yeah, I liked Kraftwerk. Mannheim Steamroller from the United States, I thought was a German band, in light of celebrating Kraftwerk. But it helped me in my music professional career of things to rent out by being involved in music synthesizers in the early days of synthesizers. But the understanding of science and how things worked was really always kind of a curiosity. And finding smart guys. Repair technicians, those were my teachers. Guys that, work with a soldering gun and can fix an oscilloscope. It's one thing to use an oscilloscope. It's a totally different thing to know how to fix an oscilloscope, operate a camera, or fix a camera. Take it apart and get down in there, take the whole thing apart, lay out the 900 parts there, and fix it and put it back together. That's really something with all that. I like all that. And those are the people that I would have to advise us or work at the company. Work at Village Labs, as we were later called, and go for Baroque Audio and Starship Enterprises and Mountain States Laboratories and the.
Were you also involved in Cray computers?
Yeah, I was involved in Cray. I had.
What's kind of? That was like very advanced at the time.
At the time, yeah.
So, what did qualify you for that? I don't see that in your education, like mathematics, or what was kind of the qualification to work with Cray computers?
Cray required what was called a front-end interface, an FEI. And I'd gotten involved in the early stages of graphics and software and creating what was called an API, application programming interface, and GUIs, graphical user interfaces. And we made a little additional in-house business out of writing that software, and we knew how to service the VAX brand model number of Digital Equipment Corporation computers, which was usually, here's the FEI, the front-end interface. We're here working that. There's the giant supercomputer back there. This front end talks to that. And then goes out onto the network. You have a frame buffer, it's called, for graphics, connected workstation over there. And we knew how to interface that and how to interface into a Cray. And I got to know the Cray salesmen and the Cray repair people and places that were using a Cray and using a silicon graphics and a DEC. We would frequently go there and service them. We and me personally knew how to make a service call and update the software or define some part that might need repaired or know to call in, who to call from Cray or to. We became so familiar with it that inevitably I got involved in knowing how to design complete supercomputer systems. We turned that into a consulting business. How to design and build and set up supercomputers for graphics.
Maybe you could help me with AI and researching Billy's material. Kind of what I want to do is putting ChatGPT or so, for example, only you can't feed it information. They feed it.
Yeah, you have to train it.
Yeah, and I want my AI that I can train myself by giving it Billy's material and then talk about it with it and that it learns that way. Also my answers or so, or when I interview Billy, then it also gets Billy's words and put that in, and that it understands the creation energy teaching better and better, and that I can learn also through that, because it knows then all the pages while I cannot memorize all that. So it could become a very interesting AI. Every AI depends on how it's trained.
It does.
If it's trained for war, then you have a war machine. But if it's trained for peace, you have a peace machine, kind of, or a peaceful machine. And so the same you could do with that material. And I think that could be very, very precious. So
there's ways.
There are already some
metaverse.
What is it, metaverse, or what it's called? Or I have to.
Well, let me ask you a question. Do you like margarine?
Yeah. Well, no, butter.
You like butter?
Yeah.
So you like butter. You don't necessarily like artificial butter.
No.
So if you had your choice, you'd take butter.
Yeah.
Versus margarine or oleo.
Like.
So if you had your choice, would you take artificial intelligence or would you take real intelligence?
Well, real intelligence. Like
real intelligence.
Yeah.
So artificial intelligence is more readily available. It's a little bit cheaper. It's all the rage. It's all going on. But it's still getting kind of settled down. It still is getting into a way that, like ChatGPT, you can log on, you can set up, and in 5 minutes you can be having it write a report for you based on everything it's learned by going out into the internet and saying, it's all true. It's all true. We gather this all up, I'll be trained, it's all true. And I'm going to access all that. Now that I've learned, machine learned, all that's on the internet and all that's in this library and all that, and it's all true, I'm going to answer your questions based on the fact that all the information I have is all true. And I'm going to give you that artificial intelligence information. You know what? It's not all true.
No.
So the quality of what you give it, what you train the computer at, is becoming automated, like pipe organ, a synthesizer with a built-in drum machine, built-in bass player and a rhythm built into the keyboard. So those are music assists. They're not necessarily artificial. On the borderline of it, but I'm trying to show you a distinction of it's more important to know how to ask the question than to create or answer machine. Set it in front of you and now ask questions into the answer machine. So before you know it, months from now, not years from now, but months, maybe a year from now, by the time you've got all of your questions asked and define what you want to do, the system for you to walk up to and sit down and put on a headphone and a microphone and say, here's what I want to do, just like ChatGPT. But there will be methods to take all of Billy's material and turn it into a PDF file so that all of Billy's material is machine learning into the system, which has also gone out and learned about the cosmos and about mathematics or whatever else you say, you know what? This information needs to be added to into the ability to give it an answer. So that the questions that you've asked and that you've prepared for and gone back and asked to Billy, what all would someone need to know about in order to understand and experience and integrate the thing that you wrote right here? Look, in these contact notes right here, what do we need to know about? We need to know about astronomy. We need to know about biochemistry. We need to know about gardening. What do we need to know about in order to listen to what Billy you said, talking to Billy, and integrate it and have it be presented in such a way that we can integrate it and use it? What else needs to be learned? What else needs to be fed into the artificial Billy or to the intelligence-assisted Billy?
Yeah, it would be nice if it could also learn from the questions.
Yeah, learn from the question.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That is.
So whatever one might want to do or design now will all change by the time that you're doing it. That's why it's important to gather all the information you can about how do we do this and what all do we need to do to teach the system what to base the answer on. And initially it's basing its answer on things Billy has said that was said to him. Ta said this, and Ascot said that. And they're written down too. And then Billy interpreted something and gave his own presentation of what something meant and what was going on. And I think that that's a group effort. I think to create what is now sometimes called the AI, the artificial intelligence. And it's like margarine designed by a group of people, versus the real McCoy. We've got butter, and then we've got country butter, then we've got organic butter, then we've got what Kalinda brings home for us is, you'll like this, she brings home German butter, okay? And none of those are artificial. It's all true. It's all the answers are based on things that are true. We just haven't had them put together in such a way to be delivered. And if that's what you want to do, is to use the translation system, using an AI software system to translate it into another way of explaining it or talking about it, it'll be there by the time you're ready. And it's more and more ready all the time. I'm surprised constantly to see new things that are being written about it and videos about it. In fact, it's moving so quickly that by the time you read something about it that's the, quote, latest thing, it's all new again every week. So catch up on lectures from the experts.
Yeah, it advances very quickly. Since it competes against itself.
Yeah.
So that makes it evolve rapidly, and also it can write code now. So it can program itself. So and it probably writes code better than, or very soon better than, any human.
Mm-hmm.
And so your ex-wife also, she's a known psychic, you said. Can you tell me more about it and what she said about Billy?
Well, in the early 70s, earlier than I met Wendell and Apro, about 1976, I met Gail Ruth Geiger Conley at a Mandala conference, which was founded by Marcel Vogel and Edgar Mitchell. It's called the Mandala Society. Eventually, they started another organization called the Noetic Sciences, and I met Gail at that event, and we courted a little bit, and we got married about 2 months later. And she had been at Duke University and was one of their featured in the Rhine laboratory. She was one of the people that they were using as their test subject, one of their key trans-state mediums, psychics, and the Rhine cards, the ESP cards with the double lines on it and the shapes and the squares, and you predict what the card is that's being flipped over on the other side of the wall, and they would do it 1,000 times and see how many people could predict how many times. She was one of the better ones at that. She was regularly worked with Uri Geller, who was wanting to find out about himself. What was it that was happening to him and why? And his mentor, Andrei Puharich, was also known to Gail. So they became known to me. And she would go into trance state. They would audio record her voice and do a voice print, as it's called, and discovered that when she was channeling or talking to Kutumi and Manka and Moria, are the ones that she communicated with the most often, that the voice print coming out when it was Manka talking was a different voice print than Gail's voice. It wasn't like a ventriloquist who could sound like someone else or an impersonation. The voice print was different. And things about her were published in journals. It was interesting. And some photography was done while she was in trance state, and her muscle and face structure would change while she was in trance state. So I didn't know any of this. We get married, First time I came home and I hear the house, people here. There's Gail and somebody here. So I thought she was in the other room talking to someone. I sat down in the living room for a little while, and the conversation carried on. We were living in San Diego at the time. And a little while later, she came out in the living room. I'm thinking whoever she's talking to is in there. Gail, hi, I'm home. Honey, I'm home. And who's here? No one here. So, well, I just heard two people in there talking. She said, oh, yeah, that was me. And she didn't say anyone's name, but she said she was talking. It was her talking to someone who had left. That was all a surprise to me. I wasn't scared. I mean, I knew that there were things about her. So that continued for the rest of we were married until 1983. We didn't have anger issues. It was just we were doing different things, and it was time to go, grasshopper. And occasionally, and only on a couple of occasions, she would channel or ask questions about us or me. Most of the time, most of the time, 5 or 6 times that she did it, I think only maybe 1, maybe 2, was I there when the question and answers happened. She would tell me later about something that she had been told. I was told. So she told me about a guy that was deceased. Worked with another guy she knew named Lawrence Blair. And Gail said that Lawrence Blair, who had written a book about going and visiting the Dogon tribe, and that he was there during their ceremonies, and that they were in contact with people from the Dog Star in Sirius.
The Dogon people are in Africa.
Yeah, are in Africa.
The tribe.
Right.
And they say that they were visited, I think, from people from Sirius B.
Right.
constellation.
Right.
Yeah.
So Gail had the book. We had the book at home, and I had seen it before, although I hadn't read it. And she proceeded to begin a dialogue that lasted a couple days with me about, she'd been talking to this other person who was a friend of Lawrence Blair's. Lawrence Blair was still alive. The other person she was talking to was departed from the body. And that he was telling her that we should become aware of, me, should become aware of the Pleiades. First referred to, she told me Subaru. Be aware of Subaru. Be aware of Hathor. Be aware of the Pleiades. Because I'll paraphrase, like, be aware of them because their energy is going to be coming into your space. And this was at least a full year, maybe 2, before I had any contact with John Stefanelli or Apro or Wendell or Billy Meier or any of that. And she got a collection of things together. She was an artist and could actually sometimes, with her eyes closed or in a trance state, paint with both hands at the same time. These beautiful, like a sculpture of being. It looks like a painted photograph. And she painted this woman, oversized painting. And we had it in the house for years, even after we were married. But she painted the painting, be aware of the Pleiades. It's going to happen. There's something going on. So she got things, started collecting it for all of us, stories about the Pleiades from the Greek mythology and Subaru and what all that was. And then the Billy Meier case happened, and there it was, the Pleiades. She was like, told you. And she was never mean-spirited. She was always fun, happy, positive, even when she had something to say that could be interpreted as a warning of, no, don't do that. You better be careful of that guy. He's going to do something. You know. But she was like, yeah, I told you, here it is, and all that. So she never tried to get involved in what I was doing pertaining to, and she knew Lee and Britt, Tom and Wendell, everyone. They liked being around her and that, but she never tried to get involved in what they were asking me to do or where I was going. But I remember her talking to me in the way that she sometimes would, that was like beyond husband and wife talk. It was like my teacher. It's here again. And I was all for it because it was always seemed to be useful and correct. And she said, just keep your eye on the ball. It's all about science and the testing. Don't fight with Cal Korff. Don't be for or against, publicly, against any of the other things. Do the science, find the other sciences, stay steady with that. And let's not get involved in any of the human dynamics that are going on and will only intensify. As she said before, the Cal Korff, MUFON, etc., negative energy swell started. And it was like, okay, just stay steady. And don't attack him. Don't defend yourself. You didn't do anything that needs defending. At most, explain what you did.
Yeah.
Stick with that.
Yeah.
And it's the best way to give strength and fortitude to everyone else connected in the situation, including Wendell and Billy. Of like, because if I became a torch carrier, it would only be viewed as that. All the science would be just something else I had done. And it wouldn't prevail. I don't know if I'm putting it the right way, but that's approximately what all went on with me and Gail Ruth Geiger Conley.
Yeah. How did it affect you? Like, you were kind of very open-minded about the whole UFO issue in general, it seems to me. But still was a kind of where I said, wow, this is something completely new, or it just confirmed it.
I did not go off my scheduled path. It kind of confirmed for me, if I could put it that way, that what I believed or what I was doing seemed right too, already. It didn't mean I had to drop being an altar boy and go over here and learn this or that. Or, I mean, I was already interested in Buddhism and Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. I had my Gohonzon, and I had been to other groups and meetings and Red Hat Lamas and Yellow Hat Lamas and Rudolf Steiner, and it was all interesting, useful, but I hadn't become immersed in any of it. I was immersed in everything around me, and always feeling like, well, this is boot camp. There's life in my spirit. It's coming. Everybody, that was part of being an altar boy. Is that, yeah, can feel that energy. There's, people behind the altar, people up in the balcony, whatever. No fear, just the presence. And so doing things, it was like I enjoyed it, and I felt like it was useful to others. It was something new to the world. It was definitely new to the world. And the spin-offs where I learned about all kinds of other things without even trying. I learned about sound in plants, which I'm doing now, from being involved in studying the sounds of the craft, being around that equipment and being open-minded to these new sounds and things I was discovering from Findhorn and tribes that did planting ceremonies, the Dogon. Again, here they are doing something else. So I just took it as a natural, that was going to happen anyway. It was going to happen. It was destiny.
Yeah.
not that, but
yeah.
It just seemed very comfortable and natural. And I'm glad that I stayed steady in what I was doing. And, Cal Korff, Randy Winter, Michael Horn, this guy, that girl, Pleiadian channelers, all that came out of this and was unleashed on the world. And I just didn't run along with any of that. Media, the books, the things. I mean, I was in and did my little part, but I didn't feel like I was supposed to get in the fabric of it. I needed to be able to be objective and at any time examine it again or say what had really happened. And the way that it affected me was it strengthened my outlook and preparation and acceptance of things. My outlook always was I got to study all of the parts first before, I can do that. We'll do that for you tomorrow. There's a lot involved in order to do it and do it the right way so that it's irrefutable. No matter what the naysayers say, prove it. You say it, this isn't right, you prove it. Oh, you're not going to, you don't have any proof? All right. I stand with what I said, with what I did.
Yeah, I think that's great that you always, and you could stuck with what you presented. It stands to the day, and because it's good work.
And if any of it is not accurate or needs change, well, bring me the stuff to show me how to do it better. Yeah. Show me how to do it better.
Yeah.
And I have yet to see that from any of the naysayers, not one little thing that demonstrates that metal could be made in some foundry, Morton Thiokol could have made it or whatever. Well, you know what? Show me where they did or how they could have. How would that be made? And what are they using it for? Where else is there atomic elements 1 through 59 all in the same substance?
Yeah.
Where else? Is there some place we can go buy some? What would we use it for?
What about your company, Agrosonics?
Agrosonics is a project. Yeah, that's become a term that others are using too.
Oh, okay.
Agrosonics, agriculture sounds.
Okay. Yeah,
it's all part of bioacoustic. And there's a company in Hawaii and a company in Michigan and a company elsewhere. It's become a thing. If people are doing agriculture sonication and they call the technique agrosonics. So we started calling it agrosonics and we started doing it in the 80s. And then in the 90s, and then we would go do something else and go do the sound and plants again. But we've been testing it and thoroughly understand how to do it and make it work every time.
Yeah, tell about it. That's really interesting stuff. So you play basically sounds and music to plants.
We have sounds, bioacoustic sounds at the atomic level, or sounds of thunderbirds and bugs. But they're sounds that cause sympathetic vibrations, the chemical reactions in the plant and the mineral vibration in the plants that causes an energy transfer that affects how the plant processes rubisco and gases and does nitrogen fixation and carbon fixation and becomes a plant making food. There's so many processes involved. And what are the rules of acoustics and bioacoustics? And that's something we've been studying for a long time and doing experimenting and gathering information from others that are doing it. Now there's lots of labs that are trying out their own little parts. So
local TV is quite interested in it. They report a lot on it. And you have incredible results. I mean, it's a really dry area here. Mm-hmm. And compared to your competitors, your stuff grows a lot larger and better and healthier than
every time.
Yeah, every time, consistently.
Yeah.
So there's more. I mean, if there were just a few % difference, then nobody wouldn't even notice. But it's like at first sight, you see, wow, this is huge,
Yes. It is bigger, and it does happen faster, and other things happen.
They need less water, you said, too?
The plants use the same amount of water.
Yeah.
But you don't have to give it water as often, because the water that you do give it, it holds up near the plant longer. Yeah. Because the plants create a different root structure than the normal root structure. It gets more hairs in it, and it holds the water up so it doesn't run off and get wasted. So you give it less water because it uses the water that it's going to use and that it needs, And then when it needs no more water, it's got it. It's held it up in the hairs, the mycorrhizae, the roots, the hairs that are down underneath the surface of the water. Less fertilizer because it absorbs the fertilizer like a spaghetti colander. You put spaghetti in it, it screams, the holes in it, it just sits there. But if you vibrate it, all the water goes through. Or sand in gold mining padding. Put the sand on top of a screen, it'll just sit there in a pile. But if you shake it, sand will go through. Spray the minerals on a plant, just can stay on the surface and absorb slowly. Or if you vibrate the plant, more fertilizer goes in. At the atomic level, we can create match resonances with the ribonucleic acid transfers ribonucleic acid's short-term instructions, RNA. DNA, deoxynucleic acids, long-term instructions. So you've got to convert the long-term instructions to short-term instructions to transfer it to action right now and have the energy to do that. So sound waves contribute to that energy, and we've learned what frequencies and what patterns, and the sounds sound disturbing. They're awful. So we have learned how to carefully select and wrap music around the sounds. Sound beep 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 beep. Music do 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 wrapped around it at the same time. So that someone walks into the garden, they don't hear what sounds like a smoke alarm going off like a terror. They hear the smoke alarm has been changed and processed to sound like birds and bugs flying, while there's violins and trumpets and flutes going on and playing a concerto in the garden. So we have created that to stimulate the production of ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which is like vitamin 1 to a plant, vitamin vital amino acid. That's what vitamins means, vital amino acids. So adenosine triphosphate is a necessary ingredient for plants to make protein. Amino acid. Can't make proteins without hooking together amino acids. So if you can make more of those and glue them together, the plant's more healthy. It's more bigger, faster, more fruit, more yield, more weight, more nutrition, more resveratrol, more proline, more lycopene in the plant.
Oh, we need ATP in every cell.
Yeah,
the
mitochondria,
it's produced.
Yeah.
So
isn't it funny like that?
Yeah. How did you find the frequencies for the plants?
Well, there's two different ways. One is by identifying the minerals that are actually in the plant. And what are the resonant frequencies, like a piano string and a tuning fork? When the string is in tune by turning the ratchet, turning a guitar string, when it's perfectly in tune, it'll transfer the energy by sympathetic resonance, and the tuning fork will start to vibrate. That's what we're doing, is we're getting the right frequency and making the tuning forks in the plant vibrate so that the biochemical reactions have this additional energy. Ergs, moles, joules, coulombs are down there, the little key things down at the atomic level that are really going on in the plant that you want to stimulate, like volts, watts, amps, current, ohms. In electricity, are going on down at that level, and bioacoustic energy can play a part in stabilizing and accelerating those biochemical reactions. So we determine the biochemical reactions that are going on, like the production of ATP from mitochondria and the energy exchange, the Calvin cycle that goes on, in identifying the energy transfer levels and that becomes it's called an audio envelope. Attack, decay, sustained response, release, ADSR. That creates a wave, structured wave, like a ocean wave that a surfer can ride on that wave. Creates one wave and a second wave that's different, that creates even more energy, like an airplane wing. Top of the wing is a different wavelength. If you take a tape measure from the front to the back, is a different angle and a different distance than the bottom one. And by having those two, top and bottom, structured the right way, it creates lift. Can lift a whole airplane full of parts and people and fly. We're doing that with plants. We are creating the intersecting wavelengths that stimulate the biokinetic reactions in the plants. And there's a lot involved. That's why it's taken so many years of development, and then try it out for a whole growing season. Oh, we got to adjust that. Well, it takes another year or another 3 months or whatever for a growing season.
Yeah, well, what intersecting wavelengths are you talking about?
Well, they're all different wavelengths. It's not just two. They vary. And it's like the sound of a waterfall and the sound of the wind at the same time. They're very close. They're both square waves. But the waves of one will intersect with the other, or an organ pipe. Here's one organ pipe. It's 8 feet long. Got another organ pipe. It's 4 feet long. So you play those two frequencies, but what will happen is that a third frequency will come to exist just by playing those two notes out into the air. They intersect with each other and become a third note. A harmonic is created, and now when this guitar player and this one are playing alone, it sounds one way, but when the two of them play together, it creates notes that nobody played, okay? And wow, look at what's happening when those people are playing together, and it creates new vector forces. So an airplane wing only has the two frequencies, and when they're really exact, if they're wrong, it'll fall to the ground. But when they're exactly right, those vector forces intersect and huge airplane takes off flying up in the air just by that.
This what you're working on, I talked with Billy about in that sense, that the Pleiaren had this incident tens of thousands of years ago where a sphere appeared and flew around the planet for 32 days and then went to all the planets of the Federation, and same happened there. And in the whole Federation, they became a completely peaceful society.
Hooray!
Hooray! So I said, we gotta need this.
Can we get some of that?
Yeah, let's bring it over.
Yeah.
And even though they can go back in time and look at it again, they don't know where it came from. They can't figure it out, and they don't know where it went, or who made it, etc. I guess it goes back to Nicodemian, which is like billions of years ago, maybe. But it changed them over. It took a very long period of time, but that event changed these societies that were involved over and over again in war, not as much as we were maybe, but also a lot, to permanent peace. And
yeah,
And so I talked to Billy about it and said, well, I think it must have been some kind of frequency they were exposed to.
Yeah.
Or frequencies. And for example, when I like to listen to Johann Sebastian Bach a lot.
Me too.
And it seems to me that his music has a quality that no other composer has in what I suspect is like balancing the right and left hemisphere of the brain.
Yeah.
And it's not that Mozart or Beethoven or so are not great, but he seems to be even more balancing the hemispheres in the brain. I don't know if that's true, but this is also mentioned somewhere by Ptah, I think, in the contract reports, that music can have that effect.
Yes.
And so, and also in the comments on the internet, when you listen to the music and there are comment sections like, listening to Bach, and then my faith in mankind is restored. And so I said to Billy, well, with music, I think you cannot change like with music people towards like becoming peaceful. And he agrees that is not powerful enough. So those frequencies must be different than music. And as far as they know, they didn't hear anything or so. It's not like there was loud music whenever it came around or so. So it was not in the audible range, these frequencies, but I'm sure that were some kind of frequencies they were exposed to.
Yeah, we use sounds also that are ultrasonic.
Yeah.
That are not heard by our ears.
Yeah.
But is still interacting with the sounds in the audible range and interacting with the plant directly. And that the sphere and orbiting could have been generating sound that would be out of the range of hearing.
Yeah.
As easily. It's actually easier to generate ultrasonic sounds than it is to generate sounds in our hearing range. The sounds, when you hear what they sound like?
Yeah.
The raw sounds. Let me see if I got some of it. Is it funny? How similar it sounds to, you know what, that's the battery is not charged up enough. Aww.
I can put that in later. But I get it. There are always a couple seconds already.
Yeah.
So I put it in later.
And there's more than one sound.
Yeah.
We have about 400 different sounds that affect the mineral structure, the nutritional cycle. A banana tree is different than that's in wheat. Yeah. So, and how long and how often do we play it? Ultrasonic, higher. We got bass, boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
High. Ultrasound, even higher than that, out of our range of hearing. But just because we can't hear it doesn't mean that bats and bugs and other things in nature aren't being affected by those sounds, and because they are. And it's important to match the resonance, sympathetic resonance, in order to give energy to a biokinetic, bio in motion, kinetics, kinetic energy, transfer of energy. And like in humans, it's the Krebs cycle. In plants, it's the Calvin cycle. If we're going to take this and we're going to add it to this and make some of that, and mitochondria, ATP is all part of the Calvin cycle.
What is that?
In plants.
What is Calvin?
Just named after the person who discovered it. It's taking in rubisco, which is phosphorus-rich hydrocarbon gas that's everywhere. It's what plants eat. Plants eat this combination of gas that's everywhere. It's the most abundant gas on the planet, rubisco. No one's ever heard of it. Some people have heard of it. And turns rubisco into starch and sugar for a plant, for food and the chemistry throughout the entire plant. And there's different stages of ATP synthase and these little motors that are turning to make energy transfer signals. And it's a whole cycle, like the Krebs cycle of digestion. We're going to eat, we're going to process it and turn it into sugar and use it right away, or we're going to store it as fat, turn it into fat, and then we got to use it. So we got to supply some amino acids, enzymes in order to break down the fats and turn it into sugar that we can use it. That's the Krebs cycle. It's drawn as a circle, a cycle of digestion. So Calvin has that for plants.
Okay, so do you also use like ELF, extremely low frequencies?
And for certain things it's useful. It's for absorption in the root structure. And sometimes certain diseases like Librobacter, HLB, a disease that's in the citrus, sometimes nicknamed citrus greening, lower frequencies, and ELFs, much lower frequencies, down around the Schumann resonance, can help unblock the thickening that's happened to block the phloem, the xylem transfer up and down from the roots up to the plant.
Yeah.
Low frequencies. And it's also good for, mushrooms. Mushrooms is good. Lower frequencies. Different things. It depends on the minerals and the chemical reaction that's in the plant. That's what the tuning forks are. And that's what we're doing is setting that up.
Yeah. But how do you, as a trial and error, how do you find the right frequencies?
Some of it we predict. We take certain measurements. And then based on that, we predict what the rest will be by knowing what the cycles are. Some of it we match specifically to the minerals that are in the plants, the minerals that are the fertilizer, the nutrients that are provided so that it will be absorbed into the plant better. Copper, manganese.
How do you do that? That you match it to the minerals?
Well, tuning forks can be made out of anything and they can be tuned. So we want to transfer the energy from here to there, the minerals that are there. And those transfer rates and those resonances are closer to the energy that's transferred by Dilettoso's company and Schussler in making homeopathic remedies. It's not a simple thing to explain. There's a lot of technical measurements involved. Certain things that are published by others are readily available. Like the Kyoto Project publishes the resonant frequencies. Schussler and Dilettoso's company publish the frequencies of like the Royal Rife frequencies that a lot of confidence some people have in that. Others, it's woo-woo bullshit. But there is something to it. You just have to have it exactly right. And like the Rife frequencies, they are extreme decimal points. Those frequencies will be like 138.6 60509023 because it's so exact. The resonance, the frequency that is going to make this fluid in this cell or cell salt vibrate. When vibrations in the universe started, there were no humans. There were also no numbers. 1, 2, 3. There was also no seconds. Seconds are related to time and distance on our planet. And how long does it take the Earth to move around 1 degree in 1 second is part of a day and all that. So frequencies is how many hertz is how many beats per second. Well, who said a second? Where does a second come from? What is that? It's a portion of a minute, which is longitude and latitude minutes in the turning of the Earth based on 24. Well, where'd that come from? So to have a second, it was just so many hertz. You can get all caught up in trying to match it to a piano, which is arbitrary. Arbitrary is not, it was created by humans. And it may or may not match, and it doesn't match. You can't, a virtuoso trumpet player has no effect on plants at all. No effect. A child playing a trombone for the first time, just randomly playing it, the plants love it. Because the frequencies, the notes that are on a trumpet fixed are not the resonant frequencies of the minerals in the plant. Those notes and those frequencies and that key and that scale was made up by humans long after plants were vibrating and growing and doing all that. So we have to go to a scale of scientific measurement that is universal and closer based on atomic and energy, not particles. Therefore, I use more than one thing to determine the frequency, but part of what I do to use to determine the wavelength comes from, here, you ready for this? The Walter Russell spiral chart. Could be right, could be wrong, but when I use that as one of my components, the plants grow mo bigger every time. I love saying mo bigger instead of more bigger, instead of larger. So it's as scientific as one can get, using things that are repeatable. Science. Sympathetic resonance. If we can make this plant vibrate, how do we know we had an effect on it? Does it have more ATP? How can we measure for that? Does it have more vitamins? Does it have more protein? Resveratrol? Or, wait a minute, can we make the plant vibrate and make more electricity that we can measure? Piezoelectric effect. Quartz under pressure makes a voltage. Do you know about that? P-I-E-Z-O, piezoelectric effect.
Yeah, I heard of it.
Quartz under pressure makes a voltage. The old flash cubes, you put in the flash instrument camera, you cock it like a spring noise. And then when you push the button, the spring pressure up against the piece of quartz makes a voltage that, boom, fires off the flash cube. There's no battery. It's a spring making pressure on a tiny piece of quartz that releases the voltage with the pressure of the spring to release the voltage to send enough voltage to fire off that tungsten and make a flash. go off. That giant pyramid with all of that quartz, it's the limestone, all piled up, makes a voltage on the bottom that is measurable. The sound waves pressure, sound pressure level, SPL, decibels is SPL, sound pressure level. Quartz under pressure makes a voltage. Sound pressure on a plant makes a tiny voltage that's released in the roots and released in the plant that is part of the biochemical reaction. We can measure that. We do this sound onto this plant. We can measure it. We get 3/thousandths of a volt. We do this figure, this one, we get 1.5 volts. What is the transfer? Why is that happening? Oh, it's SPL. So we step through different voltages based on what we have calculated and we are pretty sure it's going to be. So we get down to it's one of these. Now, clamp on it, do the sounds. When the voltage goes up, that's it. That's the one. Save that. So it's calculations in advance based on known minerals and biochemical reactions. And after we've completed those calculations and those determinations, we then apply them to, we use banana plants frequently because they got big leaves and, can respond better to the sound. And see if we get a change in voltage.
Yeah, and then you produce the sounds with a synthesizer, or how do you do it?
Only an analog synthesizer. Has to be analog. Digital is quantized. 40K, 48K. A plant hearing that sound thinks that you're talking and it's all chopped up. 44,000, 48,000 times a second. It just wants, it does, So if we're going to use a synthesizer, it's an analog oscillator synthesizer, not a digital synthesizer. It's not MP3. It's not MP4. It's not WAV file. It's not even a RAW file. It's an analog sound.
Well, that's like music in the ears of audiophiles.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. So the best way is to record it onto tape and then transfer it to a vinyl phonograph record and play it back with a Macintosh tube amplifier.
Yeah. So it's a complex process.
Yeah, it is.
And I wish you good luck.
Yeah.
That it really goes global. It would be good for the whole world.
Yeah.
Because
people started playing their own music phonograph records in their backyard.
Yeah.
More food, faster.
Yeah.
Cheaper.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, food will be a major problem. Not enough food in the future. So this, I really hope that you can go global.
Does Billy still have time for farming, or is he able to?
No,
farming.
That's the little garden farming work we do, or when people come and visit.
Yeah.
And members. Yeah. And no, he focuses on writing. Yeah. When he's fine. And that's what he focuses on and should, because.
Hooray.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love what he writes.
Yeah. It's great stuff. Thanks a lot, Jim.
Thank you for having me.
That was a great occasion.
Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah. And get some records straight here. And maybe we can do it again
Zoom.
sometime. Yeah, Zoom. Yeah, right. Yeah, I got to learn that from you, how to Zoom properly,
Yeah.
Good quality.
It's not that hard.
Yeah, I think so.
We'll do it before you go.
Yeah, we should do that.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Bye. Bye. Bye.